Have you ever wondered why, at this age, it feels like someone else has already written your life, and you're just repeating the same days? This video will show you, no one defines your life but you. Opening that touches the pain. Imagine waking up one morning, looking in the mirror, and feeling like you're just a side character in your own life. No more youthful dreams, no long-term plans, only routines on repeat, sighs you don't even notice anymore, and a quiet belief whispering, "This is it." Many people after 50, 60, even 70, start to feel as if life has already been scripted: morning pills, afternoon rest, evening TV, then bed. And they begin to believe that, like a movie halfway through, the rest is nothing but a slow, predictable ending. But here's a fascinating truth psychology has uncovered: you never lose the ability to rewrite your role. Your brain can still learn new skills, still build new neural connections even when you think it's too late. A Harvard study found that people over 70 who learned piano or a new language for just 6 months not only improved memory, but also reduced feelings of depression and aimlessness. Which means the barrier isn't age itself, it's the belief that your chances are already gone. Think of it this way: if your life were a book, would you really let someone else write the final chapters? Or would you want to grab the pen and surprise everyone, including yourself, with an ending so unexpected that people say, "I can't believe they're living like that at their age"? And here's the best part: you don't have to flip your whole life upside down. Sometimes it's one small action, changing how you start your mornings, learning one new skill, or finally making that phone call you've been avoiding, that can open a brand new chapter. Because the truth is, your life isn't defined by age, society, or anyone else's expectations. It's defined by you, in the exact moment you decide it is. The burden of age. Some people joke that turning 60 is like receiving a massive invoice from your body, aching joints, memory slips, and your doctor suddenly showing up more often than your neighbors. It sounds funny, but in reality, many carry a heavy sense that aging equals loss. Loss of health, loss of role, loss of usefulness. And when those losses pile up, the mind easily falls into the trap: I don't have anything left to contribute. Psychology calls this state learned helplessness. After repeated failures or limitations, people start believing that effort is pointless. Martin Seligman's classic experiment showed that even dogs, when placed in situations with no escape, eventually stopped trying. In later life, many people unknowingly fall into the same pattern: they stop trying, because they believe there's no chance of winning. But here's the truth no one talks about: the feeling of being too old to start again comes mostly from cultural beliefs, not biological reality. Yes, your body changes. But medical research proves that the brain and body can still recover, adapt, and learn well into the 70s and even 80s. A Stanford University survey found that people over 65 who stayed socially active and kept learning reported twice the life satisfaction of those who gave up. So how do you escape the burden of age? Not by pretending you're 30 again, but by acknowledging reality and then redefining it. Instead of saying, "I'm too old to," will flip it around: "Because I've come this far, I've earned the right to choose how I live the rest." When you change the way you speak to yourself, you start dismantling the invisible wall called old age. The sad part is, many believe age is a prison, when in fact it's only a fogged-up glass window. Wipe away the layer of dust society put there, and you'll see, there's still a vast world ahead, and the key has always been in your hand. The trap of social labels. Here's a strange thing about society: it loves to hand out labels the moment you hit a certain age. Suddenly, you're senior, retired, or too old for that. And like sticky notes slapped on your back, these labels follow you everywhere, even when you never agreed to wear them. The most dangerous part? Over time, you start believing them. Psychologists call this internalized ageism when you absorb society's stereotypes about aging and turn them into your own self-talk. Research from Yale University shows that older adults who internalize negative stereotypes about aging live, on average, 7.5 years shorter than those who hold positive beliefs. Think about that. A mindset can literally shave years off your life. It's like being told your whole life that after 65 you should slow down, play it safe, or leave the adventure to the young. And so people shrink their dreams to fit inside a box society built for them. They stop applying for jobs, stop picking up hobbies, stop daring to imagine. Not because they physically can't, but because someone once said, "That's not what people your age do." But here's the irony: society's labels are lazy shortcuts. They don't define who you are, they only describe averages, and you are not an average. There are 80-year-olds who run marathons and 50-year-olds who can barely climb stairs. There are retirees starting businesses and 20-somethings who feel stuck. Age is a number, not a destiny. So the question becomes, whose voice will you believe? The anonymous crowd telling you to slow down? Or your own inner voice that's been waiting for permission to dream again? When you peel off the sticky labels and toss them in the trash, you realize something liberating: the script society gave you was never meant to be your life story. The science of change. Picture this: you're at a family dinner, and someone jokes, "Well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks." Everyone laughs, but here's the punchline: science says that's completely wrong. Your brain is not a rigid stone that hardens with age, it's more like wet clay, always capable of reshaping itself. This magical ability is called neuroplasticity, your brain's power to rewire and form new connections. And it doesn't shut off at 30, 50, or even 80. Studies from University College London showed that adults in their 70s who practiced juggling for just a few weeks developed measurable changes in brain structure. Yes, juggling. Meaning, if you can toss a few balls in the air, your brain can literally grow. Why does this matter? Because it proves that change isn't just motivational fluff, it's biology. When you learn a new skill, meet new people, or even take a different route to the grocery store, your brain responds like a curious child, building new pathways, keeping itself sharp, and reducing the risk of memory decline. It's like giving your nervous system a daily workout, without needing a gym membership. But here's the catch: the brain is a bit like a smartphone app. If you don't update it, it still works, but slower, glitchier, and full of bugs. If you feed it novelty, learning guitar chords, joining a book club, even trying out TikTok with your grandkids, it updates itself. Not only does this boost mental health, it also sparks the lost sense of joy, the feeling that you're still growing. So when someone says, "I'm too old to change," the truth is the opposite. You're literally wired to change. The only real question is whether you'll give your brain new material to work with, or let it replay the same old loop until the credits roll. A story of rising again. Let me tell you about George. At 62, he had just retired after 40 years at the same factory. The first month felt like a vacation. By the third, it felt like a prison. His days blurred: coffee, TV, a nap, more TV. He once told his daughter, "I feel like I'm waiting for the end to show up at the door." That's how hollow life can feel when you think your best chapters are behind you, but here's where it flips. One day, while aimlessly scrolling online, George saw a video of a man his age playing the violin in a subway station. Something stirred. He remembered being 12, begging his parents for lessons, but money was tight and life moved on. At 63, George decided to finally pick up the violin. His hands shook, his neighbors complained, and he sounded like a cat stuck in a dryer. But he kept at it. A funny thing happened. The violin became more than an instrument. It was a lifeline. His memory sharpened, his mood lifted, and eventually, he joined a small community orchestra made up of retirees like him. Within a year, George wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. He once said, "I didn't find music. Music found me again." Stories like George's aren't rare. Psychologists note that pursuing long-buried passions can reignite a sense of purpose, ward off depression, and even improve physical health. The Mayo Clinic reports that engaging in creative activities later in life lowers the risk of cognitive decline by nearly 30%. So no, chasing an old dream isn't frivolous, it's medicine. The real lesson? It's never too late to become the person your younger self once hoped you'd be. George thought retirement was the end of his story. Instead, it was the perfect setting for a powerful second act. The power of small choices. Here's the sneaky truth about change: it rarely comes as a thunderclap. No magic switch, no cinematic makeover. Most of the time, it starts with something laughably small, like choosing to take the stairs instead of the elevator, or saying yes when you'd normally say nah. These tiny shifts, repeated often, are like nudging the steering wheel of a car. A degree here, a degree there, and suddenly you're on a completely different road. Science backs this up. Researchers at Duke University found that over 40% of our daily actions are habits, not conscious decisions. Which means your future isn't shaped by one grand choice, but by the little loops you repeat every day. Change the loop, change the life. For example, writing in a gratitude journal for 5 minutes a day has been shown to boost long-term happiness levels by up to 25%. That's 5 minutes less time than it takes to complain about the weather. Think about it this way: if you drink 1 glass of water instead of soda, you won't suddenly lose 20 pounds. But do it daily for a year? That's over 30,000 fewer calories. If you walk 10 minutes a day, that's more than 60 hours of movement by year's end. Small doesn't stay small when it compounds, and here's the best part: small choices are doable. You don't need to reinvent yourself overnight. You don't have to run marathons, publish books, or start a company. You can begin by watering the plants, calling an old friend, or stretching for 5 minutes before bed. These aren't just habits, they're declarations. Every small action says, "I'm still choosing. I'm still here." So when life feels overwhelming, don't hunt for the grand miracle. Look for the next small choice you can make. Because one tiny yes today might be the first domino that topples an entire new life tomorrow. Facing your fears. Some people are terrified of spiders. Others? Public speaking. But you know what fear most often stalks people after 50? It's not heights or darkness, it's the fear of looking foolish. The fear of failing in public. The fear of trying something new and having everyone whisper, "See? Too old for that." Here's the thing: fear is sneaky. It dresses up like protection but actually works like a thief. Neuroscience shows that fear activates the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. Useful if a bear is chasing you, not so useful if all you're doing is signing up for a painting class. The brain can't always tell the difference, so it pumps out the same chemical cocktail that makes your palms sweat and your heart pound, even when the danger is just an empty canvas. But here's the plot twist: exposure to fear, facing it in small doses, actually retrains the brain. Psychologists call it systematic desensitization. One study from Emory University showed that older adults who deliberately confronted social fears, like joining new groups, not only reduced anxiety but also boosted their sense of belonging. It turns out courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the habit of acting while your knees are still shaking. Take Margaret, 72, who signed up for improv comedy classes. She nearly quit the first day, convinced she'd embarrass herself. But week by week, the fear shrank. By month 3, she was the star of the class, not because she was flawless, but because she laughed at her own mistakes. Her secret? She treated fear as a dance partner, not a prison guard. So what's the lesson here? Don't wait for fear to disappear before you move. It won't. Move anyway. Embarrassment won't kill you, but regret? That lingers. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is whisper, "Yes, I'm scared, and I'm doing it anyway." Redefining success. Here's a funny observation. When you're young, success looks like a mansion, a sports car, and maybe a corner office with a view. But somewhere past 50, those trophies start to feel a little hollow. Because deep down, you realize success isn't about collecting shiny objects, it's about creating a life that actually feels good to live. Psychologists call this shift eudaimonic well-being. A fancy way of saying fulfillment comes from meaning and purpose, not material stuff. A landmark study from the University of Michigan followed older adults over 2 decades and found that those who defined success as contributing, connecting, and growing lived longer and reported higher life satisfaction than those who still chased external markers like money or status. Translation? Purpose beats paychecks in the long run. Think about it. What's more valuable at 75, an expensive watch gathering dust in a drawer, or an afternoon laughing with your grandkids? Which memory will outlast the other? One is a possession. The other is a legacy. This doesn't mean ambition dies with age. It just changes costumes. Maybe success now is waking up without pain. Maybe it's finally finishing that quilt you started 10 years ago. Maybe it's mentoring a younger person who reminds you of your younger self. The scale is different, but the weight is heavier with meaning. And here's the liberating part. Once you redefine success, you also redefine failure. Forget about not being rich, famous, or endlessly busy. If your measure of success is peace, joy, or connection, then every walk in the park, every shared meal, every genuine conversation counts as a win. So maybe the question isn't, am I successful by society's standards? The real question is, does my life feel like mine? Because if the answer is yes, congratulations, you've already made it. The Daily Action Formula. Here's a secret that self-help books rarely admit: motivation is overrated. Sure, it feels amazing when inspiration strikes, but it's like caffeine, it wears off fast. What really changes a life isn't bursts of motivation, it's the boring, unglamorous rhythm of daily action. Think of your life like brushing your teeth. You don't wake up each morning and ask, "Do I feel inspired to brush today?" No, you just do it, because the habit is stronger than your mood. Success in later life works the same way. You don't need fireworks, you need rituals. Researchers at the University of London found that it takes, on average, 66 days to form a new habit, whether it's walking after dinner, journaling, or practicing the guitar. 2 months of small, steady effort, and your brain starts running the behavior on autopilot. That means the hardest part isn't forever, it's just the beginning. So what's the formula? Start ridiculously small. 5 minutes of stretching. 10 minutes of walking. Writing 1 sentence a day. The trick is to set the bar so low your brain can't wiggle out of it. Once the ritual is planted, you can grow it bigger. Like watering a seed, consistency matters more than volume. Here's an example. Jim, 68, wanted to get back into shape. The thought of an hour at the gym was overwhelming, so he promised himself 5 push-ups a day. That's it. Within weeks, 5 turned into 15, then into full workouts. His life didn't change because of a heroic burst of effort, it changed because he mastered the art of showing up. So forget chasing the high of motivation. Build habits that survive your moods. Because when the day feels heavy and your energy is low, it won't be inspiration that saves you, it'll be the quiet discipline of a routine you can lean on. Closing the journey to freedom. Imagine this. You're standing at the end of your road, looking back at decades of living. Will you see a story written by other people's opinions, or one boldly stamped with your own choices? That's the heart of everything we've been talking about. Neither society, nor age, nor even your past has the right to define your life. The science shows your brain can still change. The stories prove passion can be reborn at any age. The daily habits remind us that small steps compound into transformation. And the fears? They're not walls, just shadows waiting for you to walk through them. The real freedom comes when you realize success is no longer about proving yourself to the world. It's about building a life that feels like yours. Whether that means playing music badly but joyfully, mentoring someone who needs your wisdom, or simply waking up and deciding, today, I will live on my terms. So here's the final challenge. What life will you choose? The one handed to you by age labels, stereotypes, and fears? Or the one you write with your own hands, no matter how many pages have already been turned, because in the end, it's simple. No one defines your life but you. And the question that lingers, the one only you can answer, is, what story will you choose to write next?